And we are recording. Welcome to the evening of Python coding. It's the meetup that once a month we bring some Python tool or library and expose it to others and make a short demo. Today, I'm I'm thrilled to announce Baba the parrot. This is why I'll be muting myself because he will be making lots of noise. So you will not hear a lot of me, but you will hear a lot from Daniel Takabayashi because he will explain to us something that's been a very recent hype, or actually for good reasons, something called MCP servers, and he's going to show us how to use them in Python. So stay tuned, and Daniel, go ahead, tell us.
Great. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you very much for having me. Well, I'm sharing my screen. I hope you guys can see. I will change. There's a bunch of things that I would like to show. But basically, the agenda for today, it's I hope you guys will like, but I will give like a little intro about MCP, right? Before that, about me, of course, just to give a little bit of context for where I work, my experience, and so on. Then I will talk about MCP very briefly, the concept, things that I guess a lot of you already know about that, and then we go to the code. Okay. So in the code, I already shared like a little example where we build a MCP for Trello. It's like a little thing just to exemplify, and then we can go through the code. I will show MCP server, but also something that is very um, you know very not well understood. That is the client side, and for that I prepared also like a client that is different from cloud, ChatGPT or whatever, right? Cloud clients that we are used to is like a coded client, and then with that I think will be easy to get the whole thing about MCP and how simple is the architecture, but powerful. Okay, so this is the idea. So let's also, if you guys have any questions, please just raise your hand, go ahead and ask the question. Okay, I'm not a specialist. I'm not a super like especially I don't work for Anthropic as well. Just to make very clear. I work for another company, but let's talk about myself a little bit. So my name is Daniel Takabayashi. I'm a Brazilian. I work at Confluent right now. So this company here, company that pretty much knows everything about Kafka and Flink. My nickname, my I go by Taka. So if you guys want to call me Taka, it's okay. For 25 years, this is my nickname. And a little about me, I'm a hands-on engineer leader. I have like, I don't know, maybe 25 years of experience working in different, parts of the stack. I have the opportunity to co-found a couple projects. Let me just go here. So I have, right now, as I told you, I work for Conflict as a staff engineer, but I worked before as, solutions engineer. I was director of engineer as well. I co-founded like two companies, and I am also like an open source contributor, pretty much a PMC for Apache. And in the last 10 years, pretty much is when I started to work with AI-based applications, right? And this is when I start to learn something. So my first company was a AI applied for well, a bunch of AI tools applied for the e-commerce domain. The second one was pretty much for insurance for fraud detection, and I has that contribution like a heavy contribution in a project called Marvin that is pretty much like an ML ops tool, just like ML flow for engineers to deploy models to production at scale. But I'm not a scientist. I'm just an engineer, and now I just became like a kind of sales guy, trying to change a little bit my career, So that's it about me. About MCP. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol, and pretty much is a protocol that helps apps to communicate with tools. through agents, through LLM, in a natural way, language way. The idea, it was like created by Anthropic. I guess, a lot of people already know that. But the idea behind that was this idea of the motivation, right? It was this idea, this understanding that, a model itself is, it's very, it's useful, of course, but not as useful as when attached with context, right? So the context itself, when it comes to a private company, right, with private data, relational data, transactional data, you know, uh, LLMs, they become very powerful if they have access to that particular data, right? And not only data itself, but functionalities, right? So be able to, let's say, in a use case where I'm a just regular guy, I have a computer, and I would like to, I don't know, maybe control my file system, through LLMs. This is another use case where I could give access to toolings, right? To ways to the LLM to change things, or use things that are outside the training data, right? That was fed during the training process of that particular model. So I'm not getting to like what is the LLM itself, but like just for those that doesn't have a lot of experience with AI, when you go to AI, there's a lot of branches, right? And there is one branch called deep learning, pretty much. And inside deep learning, we have a bunch of different networks, right? And a bunch of different models, right? Different perspectives. What is it, like vision, specialized models? We have language specialized models, and now we have what we call large language models, pretty much like big models that were trained with pretty much the whole internet, right? And they are very useful for uh, complete or autocomplete or guess the next tokens, right? So this is LLM. So it's a foundational model. It's a model that can be reused for many different use cases. You don't need to train, right? Or even fine tune. You can just use it. But when you use this particular model, he's not equipped with, like useful things. Like he's not equipped with like the power to access like a system, and change stuff, or power to go beyond, and access like tools, and do more than just complement and complete or guess the next token. Okay, so this is pretty much is just a brief introduction. Uh, but when it comes to MCP comes with this idea of, look, it's to be more useful and to be more used by different, like people and companies, right? In a private, setup, in an enterprise setup, we need to come up with a way to, let the LLM decide, you know, what needs to be done. And once it's decided, maybe even execute, right, what needs to be done. And this is where this protocol comes to solve, right? The idea it's to create like some sort of standard to allow us engineers to define what kind of tooling, right, set we would like to make available for LLMs. You know what I mean? And by doing this, now I can just chat, or just ask, or just communicate in natural language in order to have things done, and things done could be, pretty much expose APIs from external systems, like the one that we're going to see today. So in the example that I will show you, it's pretty much how we could control Trello through its API, but using, a chat bot, right? So this is the idea. But this is, so in general, like MCP comes to this place. So there is a bunch of, like different perspectives, like the protocol between apps, agents, tool, and data, or it's a solution available for AI agents to have access to external systems. There is this also that says think MCP like a USB-C port for AI application. So there is a bunch of things, but at the end, what is MCP is just a protocol, is a way that kind of describes, is a specification that describes how engineers can make available, right, tools, resources, and other things to LLMs. And by doing that, you can create like smart like services, right? What we call the agents today. But we are not talk about the agents today. But think about agents if you are curious about how those two subjects they connect. So agents, they are like LLMs with access to tool. Then this is an LLM that can do something, right? Can interact with my system and can change my database or can invoke APIs and so on. Okay, so the basic architecture is this one over here. So let me just increase a little bit. So the basic is very simple. You're gonna have like pretty much three components: the host, the client, and the server. Very simple, like very simple architecture, client server architecture. The server is pretty much where the server itself is which holds the power to execute something or to have access to a resource. So let's say a database, right? So let's say we are talking about Mongo. So Mongo will be the service itself. Then Mongo will have like an API that we're gonna kind of wrap inside the server using the MCP protocol, right? Probably using like a MCP SDK. And with that, we're gonna have the other side, the client side. So the client side is the piece of code that will connect with the server. We'll establish like a connection, we'll authenticate or not, and we'll be pretty much managing the connection and the communication itself. And then comes the host. The host is where everything's running, is holding like sessions and so on. SDK is pretty much like the library that you're gonna use in order to make your life easier when you're creating like a MCP server, right? It's a piece of code, but instead of write down every single thing, like for instance, like the connection, how to establish the connection, or how to list things and so on, you're gonna use like this SDK, this library that will help you to streamline the code pretty much. So you're gonna reuse a lot of stuff. And Anthropic is the one that built one of the SDKs. Okay. So yeah, so this is another perspective, about the client, about the architecture itself. So you're gonna have the MCP client that could be many different. So we're gonna explore cloud as a MCP client, cloud for desktop, and your cloud as well. So I customize like a little client here, and I will try to show up, just to make clear that you guys understand that the MCP client is not only ChatGPT or cloud, can be anything that you decide. And this is where agents they come and become very powerful, because any piece of software, any API can have this intelligence, this kind of intelligence, right? And then you have the servers, so you can have as much as servers as possible. Think about servers as the new version of the API. So you know that REST API you guys have or you guys use. So yeah, so that thing could become some sort of MCP server, and by doing that, you can access the resource itself, what we want, through this language, this natural language, right? As as LLMs are. Uh, okay, so I think is good enough for the MCP deep dive. This is the last one. It's just more or less saying the same thing, just showing the difference between client and server. So client invokes, MCP server expose, right? Pretty much. And three things: tools, resources, and prompts. So tools are actions that will in some way change the state of what you're using. Right? So a database, change the database, an API like a post, a delete, or a put method, for instance, right? Or like the creation of a file in a file system, or like creation of a director. So this is like, those are the tooling, right? When we talk about resources, they usually they don't have a state. They will be idempotent, right? So doesn't matter how much, how many times you execute, it's going to be always the same. And usually it's just informational. So it's pretty much like some sort of get, for instance, or a list of something. And finally, prompts is just like templates of prompts that we could reuse during the particular flow. Right? And then here there is like other perspectives, of more examples. For instance, tools, retrieve and search, resources, files, and prompts. Pretty much just output as JSON, for instance, right, as the final step in the process. Okay, so this is a, before I jump in the more complex example, I just would like to show this one over here. It's very simple. So to create a server, we're gonna use this thing called fast MCP. So this is part of the SDK of Anthropic for Python. We're gonna pretty much associate this fast MCP class, and then we can use those decorators to decorate, the tooling, everything that I would like to expose to the LLM. And the LLM will pretty much use the naming, the pretty much the name, the parameters, and all the comments in order to understand what is the reason of and what is the functionality of that particular tool. And by doing that, now the LLM will understand. I will show more or less the process, but there is like a capability inside the LLM called tooling. Usually, like, depends of the model, the name will be different, but pretty much the LLM has the capacity to identify, based on a list of available tools, identify if what the user is asking, is prompting, is related with the tools or not. So this is the only thing that the model will do. The model will say, look, I have 10 tools, and based on what this user is asking me, yeah, and depends of what based on what this user is asking me, based on the prompt, I know that he's referring to one of these two, and so I will offer the usage of this tool. And this is how it works. Okay. So basically, it's very simple. You see here. So pretty much with this decorator dot tool, I'm exposing a tool, and with this decorator dot resource, I'm exposing like a resource. Okay, great. Any questions so far, guys? Because now I go to the code, and I don't want to this presentation anymore. Let's go to the code, right? But before I go there, any questions? Any comments? Anything?
So let me ask something, and Baba here will interrupt me. So how does the MCP know which tool to use and when?
Yeah, so this is exactly what I will show up. But the way that works is the LLM, right? Because what we're gonna do is the client has access to the LLM. The MCP server is just like a executor, right? We'll just execute whatever it was defined. So pretty much the LLM, the client, will define, look, based on the prompt of the customer and based on the list of tools that I have available, this is the most like similar tool, or I guess that this is what they are looking for. So for instance, when we say, let's say I make available, what we're gonna do in our example, right? So I will show how to control, create cards and lists of, to-do lists inside Trello. So what I will do is I will just say, hey, LLM, can you please create a list of tasks that I need to do to accomplish this particular goal? And that the LLM will say, yeah, I can do it. I know that I have access to Trello, and the tools of Trello will allow me to do that. Can I, and then he will ask, can I create those tasks? And I will say yes, and then it will execute the tooling to create whatever is needed. You know what I mean? So pretty much this is how it works. So he will, with the power of interpret the language, right? he will define, look, I guess this is what they are saying, and they will give me back the result, right? So now, programmatically speaking, when we use Cloud's API, Anthropic's API, for instance, the API will give me back, all the tools that I should call, and it will give me back also all the parameters that I should pass to that particular tool. And then inside the client is when we're gonna call the execution of those tools itself. So the LLM itself is not calling anything. The LLM is just interpreting everything that is available and what is needed, and it's creating like the connection between those two things.
So
Okay, cool.
yeah,
See if there's someone else wants more questions.
yeah, I have a question. So just try to make sure I understand. So the LLM not like, so earlier you said the LLM allowed to access to say database, but it's not doing anything with database, right? Like, so
Oh, no. Yes, exactly. Trung, what is happening is that we are like, the client is orchestrating, right? So the client is saying, LLM, this is the prompt, and this is the set of, the list of tools that I have available. And that the LLM will say, yeah, sounds like they want to create something in the database, and I see that you have like a database tool that allow you to add something to the database. And then he will give me back, and the client will say, okay, so looks like there is a tool call. Let me call the tool. You know what I mean? So it's kind of is an orchestration. So the LLM is orchestrating, saying, look, you should call this. I know what you have. You should call this. You should call that. But who's calling is the client that is running inside the host, right? So there is a machine, whatever, remote or local, that is like pretty much running this code, right? And then, the client, for each server, we're gonna have a client, and this client will be pretty much orchestrating the function calls or the HTTP calls to the server itself. So it looks like the model is very intelligent, right? But it's not. The model is intelligent. It's intelligent enough to guess with a very high accuracy what tool I need to call, right? It's needed to call based on the tools that are available. But actually what's happening is like pretty much the client that will be orchestrate everything and give like that feeling that, okay, the LLM is doing everything, right? So think about ChatGPT or any other desktop, like LLM desktop, or Perplexity, for instance, right? Or any other agent basic AI tool, right? So when we interact, we are, doing a lot of stuff, asking a lot of things, and a lot of them, they will create images, they are doing a lot of stuff, right? But actually what's happening behind the scenes is just what I'm describing. So is a bunch of rags, a bunch of things that is interacting with all the available tools, and interacting with what the customer is saying or asking, and kind of matching both things, Makes sense? But I think when I show the code, will make a little bit more sense, because it's very simple. When you see the code, is when it comes to the realization what is really happening. So pretty much this is the repo, guys. Look, this is a repo I create. It's a very.
I have one more question. So is there any like risks, like potential risks here, like potential like dangerous of using these?
Oh yeah, that is a bunch of, yes, 100%, yes. Because depend of the implementation, right? Is it just another piece of code, guys? Look, it's just, if you don't have balancing checks, if you don't have guardrails, you can just destroy whatever, right? So for instance, I will show an example where I'm asking the LLM to create a folder and a file, right? So, I could create a tool that allows the LLM to delete things, right? And then the LLM will delete. And that could be like the most important thing, my file system or whatever, right? Or so there is a lot of risk. There is a lot of risk. But of course, this is the the context engineering. Like a lot of people are learning how to skip or like face those challenges, right? But there is a bunch of challenges. There is a bunch of, because it's just another piece of software, right? If you don't take care of what you're doing, if you blindly believe and just bypass, you can just destroy whatever you're running or whatever you're controlling. Make sense?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is the example. In this example, what I will show you, it's so let me go here. That is easier. But you can clone this, right? So let me go to the code now, actually. But actually, before I go to the code, let me just present it here because I think the README here is better. No, let me go back. This is our guy. So in this example, what we're gonna do is, it's very simple architecture, just to exemplify how we're gonna do this. So in the first example, I will show like cloud as the client and host, right? Doing like a local call to this MCP server that I coded in Python, that is gonna be calling like through REST APIs, the Trello APIs. Pretty much that's it. And then for this example, to make simpler, I just create like two resources and two tools, right? So the tools are create Trello cards, create Trello list, and then the resources will be list all my boards and list all my all cards of my board. That's it. All lists of my board. So this is the tool is about. To set up is very simple. Just creating environment variable. There is a couple variables that you need to define. Pretty much those guys over here, and then you do a couple like installations here and there. It's just everything is here. So I'm using like UV to install. So pretty much, if you don't have UV, install UV. With UV, you can create the environment, the variable environment, the virtual environment. I'm sorry. Then you activate. Then you sync. When you do this, it will install locally all the dependencies. Okay. Once you do that, you can use make. I put make here, but I don't know if it's going to be used or not. But pretty much you can use this to start the server. But let's go to the code now. So this is the code. So pretty much this is my client. I will show first how to use it, and then we can, play around, and then we can come back and I will show the code, okay? But pretty much, here inside the make file, I put like a couple, comments just to remember. So pretty much everything's already installed. What I need to do is I can do two things that is very cool. So the first thing is I'm in development time, right? So I want to understand if my server is working or not, okay? So I can use this command MCP dev, and by doing this, this SDK will start this thing called the Spectre. So what is a Spectre? It's this web application that's going to be running locally that can help me to test if my server is doing what it needs to be doing, right? So pretty much, I don't need a client. This is basically the part. So what I'm doing is,
Daniel, I don't want to interrupt you, but it's like there's someone who's asking a beginner question. So I'm new to the space. What's the benefit of using an MCP server over just making an API tool to create Trello cards / lists?
Yeah, so this is the thing. Here, what we are doing is I will be able to create my to-do list using LLM, right? So I will just say, look, create this for me, and it will plan and create, right? So this is the biggest difference. If you want to use the API directly, then you're gonna have to code everything, right? So the user will need to interact with. Remember about this. Every time we talk about LLMs, usually, it's a user interface. It's a user interface, right? It's a usability gain, right? So you're improve the usability. So I don't need to type. No, I need to type. I don't need to click in buttons and navigate in a complex system, right? I can just, do stuff just by asking, right? In a very not structured way, right? I can just say, hey, create some tasks for me to remember about those three things that you just told me, right? And then it will connect and create for me. You know, in the sense, so it's more about usability, right? Okay. So, and when you put a
Think
lot of, and this is the thing, just Trello is just one example, but if you start to add more MCP servers, right? So then you have like a very powerful system that can do a lot of stuff, So for instance, put something in your calendar, plan something based on your availability, do a little research to help you to add more content to that particular card, right? Because now you're mixing everything, but the interface itself is the same. So you don't need to go through a lot of different systems to accomplish your goal. You know what I mean? So I think this is the biggest thing that makes very powerful this kind of application. Okay, cool. So here is just like this inspector is something that Anthropic made available for us. It's very cool. So you can pretty much go to your server and just test, and this is how you test. So far, I have like resources, I have prompts, I have tools, and I can just pretty much in my particular case, the server is running locally, right? So I don't need to connect. I don't need to do a lot of stuff. I don't need to authenticate, So I'm using this as studio, right? As, transport type. So there is other transport types. So this is the simplest one. And pretty much if I click in this button, I will list all the tools that are available. So in this case, create Trello list and create Trello card. And what I could do here is just, I don't want to create anything right now, but by doing this, I could just come here, fill up the the things and create. Let's create something. So create Trello list. So what is the board name? So I prepared like a little board called meetups. So we're gonna use this board over here. So let me just split my screen because then we can see, right, the creation. So in this case, I want to use this board. So pretty much the meetups board. Create like a list called to do, for instance. I don't have any list here. This is just a test, right? So test succeed. So this is the result of the tool calling, right? So my tool is working, my MCP is working, and this is the card created. So what I'm doing here, I'm literally, this is just Python, right? So it's just Python using an API to to create a card. So there is nothing amazing, right? So, but what I'm showing is this ability to test the MCP itself, right? So, and here also you can list resources, and here one of the resources is the list Trello board. So with this, I can list. I will give the capacity to my chat or to my application to list boards, using like the API. Okay, so this is the inspection. So let's go back to to cloud itself, right? So clouds, it's one of the clients. They are here, right? So there is like a settings right here in develop that lists all the MCP servers. So if you go in developer, you can see all the MCP servers. I don't have the Trello right here. So what I will do is I will install, I will make available. And to make available, I'm just stopping the inspector. And I will use this command over here. So pretty much what I'm doing is, run MCP install, and it will install and make available for cloud as well. Okay, and then that particular MCP server will be available for cloud. Once I do that, now I can chat with cloud, and he will be able to, create things for me. Before I install, let's just go here and chat a little bit with cloud. I will say, do you have any tool to manage travel boards? It's already installed. Yeah, it's already installed, but it's okay. It's not okay, but let me just close and open again. Every time you add the MCP, at least as far as I know, I need to restart. So let's go back. Do you have I don't have any tools, right? So yes, don't have. Great. This is great because I removed, right? So then I will say, if you don't have it, you cannot do much, right? So let's install. So how we install? I'm not only installing, but I'm making available also the environment variables, right? So now the server was installed. Now, if we go here in settings, probably I'll have to, restart this. So let's close again. And let's open. Now, if I go to settings, I'm here, but for some reason it's not working. Yeah, next time don't disinstall. But for some reason it's not working. Let me see if I can come up with the solution quickly over here. Define. Oops. Yeah, so here I can, like the way that cloud works behind the scenes, it's pretty much through this configuration file. So this is what's going on. And I think which, well, look, guys, if it don't work now, I will show you in a different way, just to not, waste our time. Okay? Unfortunately, demos are always like that, right? Just do one thing over here.
Daniel, is it because the MCP server is not running, it's not able to connect?
No, it's not, because it will connect automatically. Actually, the way that works here with that stdio is it's calling directly the Python file.
Got it.
So and the way that with this, with editable, what is happening is that it will pretty much like share, we're gonna be able to change this, and it's pretty much like a dev mode kind of thing. So it's not this server MCP with maybe this thing over here.
And so this piece actually starts a Trello server, right?
Huh?
It
Yes.
is a command line executed locally on your system that UV run with.
Yeah. Run. No, but UV is right here. So run with MCP with editable. Editable is correct. MCP run. I think this MCP over here is not correct. Okay, let's see if it works now. No, it's not working.
It might be because you have given the file path twice.
Oh. Let me just check this. Yeah. Okay, let's try that.
I saw there was a log file. You want to open that up?
MCP stone. Run dev server run dev server.
What's this
Yeah.
dot in the UV thing?
Where? Here?
In the UV, no. The you just saw it like the UV. You said minus editable dot server.
Yeah, this is this right here, right? This is just to say, look, this folder is the folder that has the source code. So be attached with this code. And then here, what's gonna happen is he's gonna pretty much bring the folder as the source folder for that particular command. I just, because there is run here and MCP here, I think those two things I don't think it's correct. So run with MCP, run. Run with MCP, editable. So let's try this, guys. Otherwise, we go to the client that I built, because this is just the configuration of clouds. So I don't know exactly what's going on. And instead of just waste our time, we can just go to the next one, okay? Unfortunately, but let's try one more time. Yeah, it's not working.
Why doesn't it show us an error message or something? Or does it?
No,
Like,
it's right here. It's right here.
okay,
right
so what's the error message?
Yeah, it's okay. No, this is, let's go here. So pretty much, yeah, I think it's just a command, guys, that is not formatting correctly. I think that's it. This is my guess. Okay. So what I will do is instead of stay here, I'm gonna show the other client, the client that I built, because that at least is Python, so we don't need to configure that. Okay. And then if you guys, I don't know why the command is not working, but then if you guys want to try later, I'm good with that, and just send a message or send a PR. But pretty much here, it was something happened. That is not like is not like pretty much the configuration is not correct. That's it. If anyone has time now as well to do a little Google and find out what is the right configuration, what I will do is I will just like remove this guy. I will run the original command, the one that I was using before, and then I copy and paste in the chat. And if you guys can find out the answer, just let me know, and then we can try at the end. Okay. So this is the command that I'm using. It's right here. And this is the configuration file. Right here. Okay. So yeah, let's go to the to the next one. Actually, it's the same thing. It's just the client that instead of use like cloud, what I will use is there is like a client that I build that is pretty much simulating like what cloud is doing. Okay. So let's check this one if it's working. So this one is much easier. So it's pretty much just a Python. Yes, I have access. Okay, cool. So this one is working. Okay. So let me go. So this is what's happening. So he's connected. It's not connected with all the resources. Just it's able to create and list cards. So this is it's just an example. So please create a task list for me to help me to prepare for a Python meetup where I will be talking about MCP servers. Please use the board called meetups. So let's see. So now he's requesting pretty much, right? He create the board. So if now we come here, so pretty much he create like these tasks, right? So it's still like working. So pretty much we're creating other tasks. So pretty much like he creates like this list called Python server presentation, and then the task list that he believes that I should prepare in order to come here. Okay? So it's one example, right? It's a example where I'm pretty much showing the integration with Trello. We're gonna get into the code. Let me show you just one more example. So to do this example, actually, let me go to the code and then we can run another example, okay? So Thanks God this one worked. Well, let's go. So let's go to the server. So the server, it's very simple. Okay, so I'll show in a very simple way. So the first thing is, what I'm doing is I'm loading the environment variables. So pretty much Anthropic, Trello, token, and so on. Then I'm defining this utilitary class over here to just define like what is a to definition. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. Let's go to the server. So I'm loading, then I'm defining the server. So the server name using this class called fastMCP. That is pretty much like an abstraction to help us to create MCP servers in a fast way. Then I'm loading the variables, creating like a base URL. And then here's where I have my utility methods. So pretty much functions, right? So I have a function that get board by name, list for boards. And then I have finally the definition of my tooling. So I have one tool called create Trello list that pretty much will create a list that will pretty much create a list in a specific Trello board. So you see here that I have like the board name, the list name, and the position that I want. This is up to me. It's not, doesn't, I could add anything here. It's like just a function that is decorated with this thing. But pretty much what I'm doing here is using like the API from Trello to list and do whatever I want. Okay? And then what I'm doing is, you know, there is a little logic here, but literally what I'm doing is just executing like a REST API call. I'm just doing this, right? So I'm abstracting. I'm formatting the result. You know, I'm treating like errors, for instance, right? If something happens. And I'm defining like a documentation, right? So I'm defining what it returns, what are the arguments, and what it does. This is the most important part. It's like the definition of what this function will do and the decoration. That's it. Once you do that, right? And I did that, you know, for, you know, list Trellos, for create Trello cards, and so on. I have the server. So this is the server. There is nothing else. That's it. Once I create the server, so the server is what it's doing is just like wrapping an API, right? But in a well-defined way, so in a scoped way, right? So I'm not defining all possible like actions that, you know, Trello allow me to do. I'm just defining like a little scope because it's the scope that I would like to give access to the LLM, to the agent that I'm creating, right? So that's it, pretty much. There is nothing else. There is nothing auxiliary. There is nothing more. Very simple. Once I have the client, so the client is a piece of software, right? That could be running locally, the way that we are doing, right? Pretty much is just, you know, it will start, you know, at the moment that it will start my client, it will work, or it could be like literally like remote, right? Where I gotta deploy this in a service provider or whatever, and it will generate like an endpoint, and then the client will connect in a different way, you know, using like a different type of connection or transport layer, or transport type, I guess. Okay, so this is the server. So the server is very straightforward. If you take a look inside the code, there is nothing more. There is nothing related with AI. It's just pretty much like accessing. It's pretty much like a wrapper, okay, of the API. Great. When it comes to the client is where there is a lot of secrets, right? So the client is pretty much like, for instance, if we could have done, you know, if I could have make cloud work, cloud is the client, right? So everything that I will show you is implemented inside cloud or ChatGPT or any other, you know, LLM client. So pretty much here is when it comes like, there is a little bit of magic, right? So pretty much the client is a Python as well. I'm using like the MCP SDK. And pretty much what I'm doing here is, so let me go from the beginning. I'm creating this, like chatbot thing, the client itself. I'm connecting with all the available servers, and then I'm opening like a chat loop. So pretty much when when it's like asking like query, so this is the chat loop. So pretty much doesn't matter what I chat, it's gonna be like a infinite loop that will be asking me again to the next input. Okay.
Excuse me, please. So that connect to servers, it connects to your model endpoint, right?
Yeah, it connect with not model endpoint, connect to
your
server.
server?
Yeah, connect with the server MCP,
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Connected with the other file over here. How I do that, if we take a look here, I'm kind of mimicking what Cloud is doing, but let's go step by step. So to go step by step, let's debug, right? I think is the best way to go step by step. So there's like some breakpoints over here. So let's see if we can, I hope we'll not have problem, but that's it. So I will try to go inside and literally give like a step by step, explanation of what is going on. So the first one is like, let's create the main thing, right? So pretty much here, what I'm doing is I'm defining a lot of variables, the sessions that will hold the sessions between server and client. The async is its stack just to make sure that everything will be cleaned up later. The Anthropic API, pretty much here is where we're gonna use the LLM. In this case, the LLM provided by Anthropic. Then I will create like a list of available tools. So we're gonna see, we are gonna add everything that is available there. And we also have this list that will hold like everything that is available for that particular session. Okay, so this is the first part. So let's go, just initializing. So that's it. So the chatbot doesn't do anything else. Here, connect to the servers is when we're gonna connect with servers. Okay, so coming here, the first thing that is gonna show up is this file that I defined that shows kind of like all my servers, all the available servers. So here, the file is here. So pretty much I just have one server, the Trello server, and this is the command that it needs to be run. The client needs to be run to start the server, okay? So it's pretty much what Cloud was doing, that particular configuration file that I was like trying to trick. So it's the same thing here, a little bit different of the format, but that's it. In my particular example here, I'm just using one server, that is just one server, but I could declare as many as I want. Okay, so let's go back to the debugging. So here I open the file. So what I will do is I will open the file, I will read all the servers, I will add the servers to this particular list over here. So pretty much this is what I'm doing. Now I have all my servers available. Now what I'm doing is I'm connecting with the server. In order to connect to the server, in order to connect to the server, what I will do is I will use like a lot of like a lot of the like the configurations that are not configurations, but the libraries that are provided inside the SDK. Right here. So let's go. So pretty much what I'm doing here is I'm creating this. This is pretty much what's defined the protocol. So in my case, server is running locally. So this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna use, right, this stdio server parameters, where we have all the parameters that are defining inside the file, for instance. So this is pretty much the transport, right? So here is where I'm sending and creating this context. Once I do that, now is when I will define the session itself. Everything here now I'm using like Anthropic's SDK to define the client connection. So once I'm doing this, now the session itself is set up. Now I will initialize the connection. connection is initialized. Now I will just add to this list of sessions, because we could have, why I'm doing this, because it's just to exemplify that for each server that you have, what's gonna happen is that we're gonna create like a session to connect with that particular server, right? And the client will hold all of that, okay? So this is, we initialize. Now what I'm doing is, for that particular server, I listing all the available tools. So here I have a list of tools, you know, so pretty much here. So I have, in this particular case, I'm exposing just 2 tools, create Trello list and create a Trello card. So now I have the tools available. This is where we print over here. Look, those are the tools that are available. And after that, what I'm doing is I'm just make available inside those 2 lists, like those tools that I just found inside the server. Okay? So here there is no magic. I'm just creating literally a list with all my servers. So let me just put another, is already here. So this is great. So it's right there. So now I have the connection. So the chat has the connection. So this is great. So now I go to the chat loop, right? So right now what we did, we just established the connection. So right now my client is connected with the server, and also knows that there is like those particular tools available. So what we're going to start here now is the chat loop, right? So every time we type something, we want a response. So this is the most interesting part, actually. So pretty much I'm printing here, start, type your queries, and the while true. Then I'm capturing from the input, and here's where I say something like create a card or create a list in the board named meetups. I'm sorry about this, guys. Let's see if it's gonna work. Okay, so now this is the thing. So now this is my query. So here's, because this I think will not gonna work. Let's just go again. Oh no, it's, yeah, the queries are working. Hold up, let me just, because I typed here by mistake. Oh yeah, no, it's working. It's great. So it's pretty much is asking me, create a list of cards. I'll be concise with my response. Do you have a specific task you would like to help me with? Yeah, I just need to stop to type. Yes, create one called to-do list. Oh, no, again. So now what's happening here is pretty much the process query, right? So every time that comes to this is all inside the chat loop, right? So every time it finds like a text, it will define, look, there is something that needs to be executed, so this is the message. What I did here, so this is the query with my prompt, right? So what I added was just something like, always be very concise, just to make sure that it will not like spill out a lot of tests. But this is where we get the query and send to the Anthropic, API. So here I'm just using, like the SDK to create like a message, right? To send a message to Anthropic. And here is exactly where I make available all my tools. So what I'm saying is every time that I execute that I call like the Anthropic API, what I'm doing is I make available the tools that are available, because then the API, the model itself, can rationalize and understand and recommend what are the tools that I need to call, right? So this is how it works. So once it's processed, the right here process. Then I will check the context, the content, to see if the content is a text or if it's a to use. If it's a text, I will just add to the system to print, and then if it's a tool, I will call the tool itself. You know, pretty much right here is when we call the tool itself, right here. Okay, so let's see. So if this is a text, it will just print the text. There is no more, so this is, then I will put here the name. He's asking me, what is the name of the board? And then comes again to the same step. I'm sending the query, so meetups, and let's see what's gonna happen. So here, the response. So let me just show the response a little bit. So this is the response from Anthropic. Here I have the content, and I have a text block. Yeah, let's see what's happening. I think he is not. Yes, create a list called to do in my board, Trello board. This is why cloud is much more in my Trello board called meetups. Let's see if it works now. It not. I think this is the biggest difference between something like you know, a application like ChatGPT or cloud and ourselves, like calling LLMs, you know, because the ones that we do like very, very, very depth. So what's happening right here is it will not understand what I want to. So let's see if I can figure out by being more specific. Oh yeah, now it was correct. So now it will figure out that, you know, like there is like two response, one that is pretty much okay, I understood, and the second, okay, we need to create something by calling the tool. And this is where we go to the second, you know, step inside this process query. And here's where pretty much we are talking, we know that, so pretty much what's happening here is Cloud told us, look, I understood, and this is what needs to be done. And it's pretty much what he's saying, look, you know, this is the parameters of the tooling that you need to call. You know, and you see like board name, meetups, list name to do. And then here, what we are doing is pretty much, you know, I know that. And what I'm doing is just literally, because I know that, I will just call the tool. And here's where we're gonna just call the tool. And now is where we are calling the tool and send back to the results to Cloud to see if there is anything else that we should be doing. And this ends. So processing request, the list to do already exists, and your meetup support is that another list that you like to create instead. So pretty much that's it, guys. So if you go here, again, you know, like it didn't create because there is already here, you know, but pretty much that's it. Another example that's just to finish, 3 more minutes is, let me just change a little bit. So in this example, I made available also like another file called remote servers. In this file here, I'm showing how to connect with, like it's not even remote server, but it's a server that is provided by Anthropic as an example. And pretty much what this tool is doing, it's pretty much giving access to, a lot of, file system like operations, like lists, create things, and so on. So what I will do is I will just create, I will just change in my client. So now I'm just using my client. I'm not using my server anymore. So I will just use that particular file to change. So now I'm using the remote servers. Once I save here, now it will not be able to change to use Trello anymore. So now you already connected, show all the tools. What I will ask will be just, please, or create a folder called MCP demo joke and add a file, a text file with a, funny joke. That's it. That's it. So what we will do, we will create right here. So MCP demo joke. And I hope it will add like a text file inside with a joke right here. And then the little joke. I don't scientists or seldom because they make up everything. Yeah, makes sense. That's it, guys. That's it. This was just like an example of is another thing as well for those that didn't get yet. But the idea is you have the power to build, connect, and do a lot of stuff using like natural language, the power of natural language process, right? So LLMs, I mean. So that's it. Thank you very much. That's it, Jacob. I hope it was not that bad, because my God.
No.
The
It's actually, I
desktop.
enjoyed it. When everyone's actually, I usually ask people to thank you, make some noise. They're doing it on themselves. So it's like, look up at the. So thank you for the demo and thank you for showing this. But don't go away yet. I have some questions. So you.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
No. You were showing a lot of code there. How much is it this boilerplate code that basically every MCP server SDK has, or SDK writes for you, and how much it is something related specifically to what you are doing?
No, it's so look, that is like two parts, right? When it comes to the client itself it's massive. Why? Because you're replacing the ChatGPT app, the desktop client app, right? So if you want to do that kind of application, that is much better instead of create your own, just use something out of the box, right? What I was doing here was to show what is going on behind the scenes, right? Because every time we talk about MCP, it's always like a cloud example or a ChatGPT example. So it's very hard to understand what's going on behind the scenes. So this is one thing. Another thing is usually when you're gonna code like a client, so when we talk about agents, right? So what is agents? It's like a service that is intelligent. Why is intelligent? Because it has the capacity to make decisions like the one that this little client over here was doing, right? The only difference is that here what I built was a chat, right? Chatbot, pretty much, right? But when we talk to agents, when we come to agents, there is no chats, right? It's like depends of the behavior, depends of the question, it will make a decision and proceed. You know what I mean? By using tools and LLM and this kind of thing. So here I was just trying to exemplify how to build clients, just to make sure that people understand that it's a cold thing, right? So it doesn't need to have a human in the loop, right? We could do whatever based on the response of any other, like service, right? So anything. And this is what people is doing to automate a lot of processes, like Glean, Perplexity, cursor, right? So they're all using the same technique to
Let me rephrase the question. If I want to do an MCP server, let's say for a weather station that returns the weather,
yes.
what do I only write and what is code that is written for me already and I don't need to touch?
Yeah, so you need to do something like this, Jacob. Right? So this is the, this is the, I mean, let me go to a much simple example. But in my presentation, I show, let me just bring here, because I think that is the best example ever. That's it, right? So this is the code that you need to build, right? So that's it, right? Everything else is logic. So in my example of Trello, why it was, a bunch of lines of code? Because I was like interacting with Trello API. I was putting a lot of, like good practice here and there. But at the end, that's it. Whatever you add inside, here, right? In this case, just return A plus B. Whatever you want, whatever logic, you're gonna put here. Everything around to make that thing happen, it's already provided by the library.
Thank you. So I wanted people to understand that this is a simple thing and you need to focus only on writing one function, correct?
Yes, usually for each function or each tool that you would like to make available.
Okay,
right?
thank you. Thank you. Now it's something that's much clearer. This example is perfect. Thank you. Any other questions by anyone? Come on, ask questions. It was complex. I think they fell asleep. They must have questions.
Oh, no.
No, I'm not sleeping. No.
I
Okay,
hope
Evgeny
they're
is
not
not
sleeping.
sleeping. Okay, Evgeny is not sleeping. One is
No,
not
that's a
sleeping.
great
Okay.
presentation. Thanks a lot.
Okay, ask questions, please.
So we make the slide available. Like, where can I access the slide of the presentation?
Yeah, the slides are horrible, but I will make available. Don't worry. I don't know how, but I will add to the GitHub code. I swear.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is useful. Anyone else wants to ask something?
Yeah, sorry. I also have another question. So I've seen you using tools and resource, but how does the prompts work? Like, let's say I've asked the chatbot a question, and how does it make sure that it uses the prompt instead of sending the prompt I've given to the client?
Yeah, everything kinds of work in the same way, but basically you need to make clear what is the intent of that particular template, right? And so, for instance, let's say it's to format something before you generate the output, or let's say every time there is a subject related with Trello, you need to apply that particular template, right? Because think about prompts as templates. So you're gonna define like a prompt that is a template with wildcards, right? With like variables that you're gonna replace, right? So this is the idea. And then you're gonna make available, give everything related to tools. It follows the same principle. There is this idea of documentation, right? The I forget about this name in Python, but the comments, right? So pretty much that is where you define the scope. So everything that is defined there, it's going to be used by the LLM to understand where it needs to use that particular, resource, tool, or prompt. So the way that works pretty much, let's say you're going to work to around. So let's say my Trello problem, my Trello tool, I would like to, ask different questions, the different ways, or format in a different way, or format the final request, So I will use the prompts to do that, to manipulate how it will behave.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I curious if like the use of MCP in like real product?
I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat, please?
So do you know any company that using MCP right now?
Oh yeah, a bunch. Confluent, for instance, uses MCP. Confluent is like the company that I work for. We build an MCP that is pretty much controlled. Think about this. What we sell is like a SaaS platform, right, for infrastructure to run code. So and there is a bunch of different interfaces that your engineers can, or administrators can manage that thing. So what we have is a MCP that pretty much gives the power for users to create pipelines, to check the cluster, the configurations, to create Flink jobs, pretty much everything through natural language. So you can just say, hey, how is my topic? What are the messages? Can you get 3 messages for me? Format this and do that and this and that. So pretty much it's just one example, right? But think about this. This Trello example that I gave to you is just like because I didn't have a better idea. I come up with Trello. I don't know why, because I'm not using Trello for, I don't know, maybe 5 years now. But it was like a simple example to show up, right? Simple, create cards and to-do list, right? But there is already like the Trello official MCP server right there, right? So you don't need to do that. But and Gmail as well, and so there is a bunch of MCP servers everywhere. Everybody has MCP right now. GitHub, all of them. If you go to Microsoft Azure, they already have a very simple way to turn all the APIs into MCP servers. Just clicking a button, now you have MCP servers, right? So everybody's getting crazy. MCP servers is the thing. Why? Because expand the capabilities of LLMs. You know what I mean? So I think that's it, pretty much.
Actually, the question should have been not if you know any company who uses MCP. The question should have been, do you know one that doesn't?
Yeah, that I will say. I don't know, man. Maybe
You see, that's the correct answer.
So yeah, there is like a list, a lot of lists, a lot of hubs. So there is always like a list of servers everywhere. So if you type MCP server lists or hub, you're gonna find a lot of examples, a lot of websites, everywhere. So yeah.
Let me ask you something different. Let's say I made an MCP server. I want people to know about it. Where do I put it? Like, for example, if I create a new model, I put it on Hugging Face. Is there a place where I can register MCP servers?
Yeah, you have like places like this. It's because there is a bunch, Jacob. But I think the first one that always came to the search is like this one, right? So you have this remote MCP servers. Do you have also a lot of different MCP servers, right? Then you have like the repo itself. When you go to the Anthropic repository itself, you also could open like a PR against, and they have like a list of servers as well. So right here. So each line of that, they are servers. Third-party servers, and go. It's right here. Boom. Yeah. MCP servers. Yeah, that's it, pretty much. So yes. So and always remember that MCP server itself, like just one, maybe is not very impressive, but when you start to add them, then is when you get something powerful. But remember another thing as well, very important. This is why agents are coming, with a very strong weight when it comes to this world, right? So the next generation of intelligent applications, let's say, is because if you give to one LLM, for instance, the way that we build here, a bunch of tools for different contexts, probably the LLM will start to hallucinate, will start to answer the wrong question, and so on, right? So we are finding that the LLM itself is not powerful enough to deal with a bunch of MCPs at the same time. Because of that, what people are doing, they are kind of, they are like slicing the problem, or they are componentized. They are creating multiple clients where each one is specialized in a set of MCPs. So in our example, for instance, I could have done two different like clients where one is specializing Trello, managing Trello, and the other one is specializing file systems. And then I will have a third entity that knows that, okay, I know Trello, I know this, which one is, what I need to do right now. So the coordinator, right? That will kind of orchestrator that will orchestrate which are the agent in this case that needs to answer that particular question, or is the better to answer that particular question. You know what I mean? So this is where comes like the actor, like the roles, and a lot of architectures that are, getting very popular with LangChain, with Crew AI, with agent to agent as well, protocol from Google. So there is like more things after that. So what we saw here today is just the basic, right? It's like, okay, everything starts from here. Because when we saw that, people got crazy, and then boom, a lot of things got created.
Okay. Anyone other questions?
So the MCP server, they put for free or you require to pay?
Yeah, usually yes, it's for free, because it's just an interface, right? To use something. Usually the something is where you're gonna have to pay, right? Usually, but the MCP itself should be free, unless it's remoted, is already remote and managed by someone. If it's managed by someone, you will probably have to pay something because you are using like computation memory and so on, right? But if it's not managed, then probably it's free. Probably.
What do you mean it's free? Someone is using some compute. So whenever you
No, yeah, it's the code is free. But of course, if the code is free, right? There is no license usually. But if it needs to be managed,
Really?
yeah, like all those servers that I just showed, this is all free. You don't need to. It's here, GitHub.
Okay, this is it. So you're saying MCP servers have no license?
Depends of Jacob. In general, the MCP server is just a wrapper, right? So you're gonna pay to use this resource itself.
I'm not talking about free money. I'm asking about the license. Is there a license barrier?
Depends of the MCP. So for instance, right? So if I click here in MCP from Glee, it will be free. It's open source. Then we're gonna check the license. Probably, there is no even
Okay.
like MIT
So
license.
there are licenses. Okay, this is interesting because licenses can be a barrier. For example, some of them may be GPL, some of them MIT. You cannot mix them. If you mix them, oops, you might be in a problem. I'm assuming, I didn't go into this, but like what you're saying is there are licenses. If it's open source, running them is your expense typically, or someone else's.
Yeah, depends of if you are like just like I did, right? So the way that I did, I'm the host, so I'm running the code, right? So, but there is like MCP servers that are remote. So if it's remote, it's somewhere, right? Who is paying the bill depends of the context. Could be
And other MCPs you'll need an API to actually access, like API key or something like this. Anyway, it's like you will have to pay to use them. Are there examples like this?
I depend again. Depends. But like for instance,
It's not even okay. I'll rephrase the question. I now have an idea from some code that, let's say, gives me the best recipe in the world. But I don't want to give it away for free. So I say, okay, everyone who uses it gives me $1.
Yeah.
And I write an MCP service that gives you the best recipe in the world, and I'm making it remote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
can
I ask that anyone who uses it have to pay me $1 first?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
This is what this kind of tool. You see what I'm sharing right now.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of hub, right? Marketplaces that are becoming popular now, because what you can do, you can just deploy your thing over here and you can charge. Some of them
Oh,
manage
how do you
your
see if they're
behalf.
managing how much they charge? Can you show me?
Yeah, I don't know. Then we can take a look here, you know, and
Find
see.
one that charges, just for an example. It's not we're not
Yeah.
doing any advertising. I'm just looking at an example.
Let's get this guy over here. Yeah, we need to get in deep and see how remote servers, how to connect, you know, but I don't know. Oh, those are remote, but they are, you know, like, I guess,
GitHub is most probably free.
yeah. So depends, I think was gonna be like a different one. Those are remotes already.
Okay, I'm just
But yeah, you need to, I don't know the answer
but
because I'm not paying
MCP
to use.
servers people give are free today. The ones that you showed us are free, for example.
For now, so far, I never heard about any MCP that someone is charging, because, you know, like, let's say you build for Stripe. Stripe is already building the best MCP server ever, so you don't have even chance, right? But probably some people are doing, but I'm not aware of.
Okay, that's okay. Any other questions by anyone?
Hi. So the Claude version that you used, was it free? So if I want to use ChatGPT, should I go for a premium paid one to connect here?
This one it's free. My account is free, you know. But the problem is because it's because I don't use Cloud a lot. I use more ChatGPT. But you can use, there is like a free layer where I have a number of tokens per hour, and for this example, for instance, it will work. But look, I pay ChatGPT. I like more ChatGPT so far, and I use a lot of Gemini as well. Why I didn't use ChatGPT as an example? Because with ChatGPT you can connect, but just only remote servers so far as I know. So that will be my will make my life harder. So this I decided to go with cloud. That was like, in theory it will be easier, but at the end it didn't work.
Okay. Thank
Okay. Any other questions? Questions going once? Question going twice? Question going 3 times? And no more questions, so we'll have to thank Daniel again. Please make some noise, some gestures. Guys, I'm gonna close the recording, but do not go away. Okay, we are not going away. People, please stay here because we're going to the other half of our meeting. So I'm gonna start the recording.